Okay, good morning, everybody, and Shavua Tov. I muted everyone, so feel free to unmute yourself at any point if you want to jump in to the conversation. We are beginning a new chapter this week, chapter 10, in the Path of the Just, Mesilas Yesharim, page 146, in the editions that we are using. And we've been discussing, until now, we've been discussing the midah, the attribute, the quality of zerizus. And zerizus we defined as seizing opportunities, taking advantage of every moment that's available for the performance of a mitzvah, as we realize and recognize, and we've internalized the fact that our purpose in this world is closeness to our Creator. And the way that closeness is forged is through the mitzvahs, not just the mitzvahs as in the man-to-man, human interhuman mitzvahs like, chesed and charity and tzedakah and kindness and all these different things that we do between human beings, but also the mitzvahs that are, as we say, bein adam l'makom, between man and God. All the mitzvahs that are just personal mitzvahs between us and Hashem. Kosher, Shabbos, tefillin, etc., etc. All of these mitzvos are opportunities for us to deepen that connection, to forge that relationship. And when we've truly internalized that, then we don't want to miss the opportunity to be able to grab those mitzvos as they present themselves. And that's what zerizus is all about. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to, in chapter 9, is where the Ramchal is going to clue us in on what are the things that typically get in the way. Everyone I think here recognizes that our lives would be more meaningful, that we'd be better people, we'd be better, human beings, we'd be better Jews, we'd be better everything if we practiced zerizus. Right? I don't think anybody here would say, oh no, zerizus is the bad thing. I think it's better to procrastinate and to be lazy in our divine service. We all agree, every one of us, I'm sure, no one would disagree that this is a good thing. So the question is, why don't we all do it then? Okay, it's a good thing, we all get it, let's do it. The answer is, like everything else in life, it's hard. It's hard and it's challenging. And the Ramchal now is going to lay out for us specifically what those challenges are. What makes this so hard? And if we're aware of that and we have an understanding of what the pitfalls are, or as he says, the factors that can potentially detract from the acquisition of this midah, this quality, then if we're aware of them, we can see them in our own lives. We can call them out. We can try to avoid the things that are going to make it difficult and figure out how to attach ourselves more and more to this quality as we go forward. So here he goes. He says, the factors, I'm on 146, the factors that detract from zerizus are the very same factors that increase laziness and inaction. The greatest of them all is, drum roll please, the desire for physical relaxation. Okay, comfort. It's a lot easier not to live this way. I just many of you know I just spent 2 weeks, or not 2 weeks, a week with my father and my brother, and the three of us were traveling together in Europe. And my brother's an amazing guy. He's a little bit hard to be around because he's so freaking disciplined. It makes me crazy. He's like, he does everything right. He's so disciplined. He wakes up early. He eats super incredibly healthy. He exercises amazingly well. He's got unbelievable discipline, and he's the opposite of lazy, and it's like you're around him and you're just like, oh my God, like what's wrong with me, but it's also inspiring. He also makes you realize that there's so much more we could be doing in our lives if we were focused and disciplined. So there's this, we all have this inertia this lazy part of ourselves. Everyone has it. Some of us have learned how to fight it and overcome it and have challenged it and have pushed ourselves. Others haven't. But no matter what, the bottom line is this attraction towards physical relaxation, the easy street, taking it easy, the easy way out, is always going to get in our way when it comes to spiritual growth. It's just a reality. The hatred of exertion. Okay, show of hands. Who hates exertion? Right? Who likes exertion? If anyone likes exertion, just raise your hand. I'm gonna remove you from the group right now because I don't like you. Okay. Nobody likes exertion. Who likes exertion? We hate exertion. And the love of physical delights enjoyed to their fullest degree, right? All the physical pleasures. Let's pick on Jeffrey. He's coming in right now. Jeffrey, good morning. Do you like exertion? I guess Jeffrey's quiet today. Jeffrey, do you like exertion?
Do I like mental exertion.
Okay. Do you like physical exertion?
Not too much.
Okay, good. Then you can stay on the call. Okay, I'm going to mute you now. We're on page 146, Jeffrey. Right? These are the things: the hatred of physical exertion, the love of physical delights enjoyed to their fullest degree. All of these things get in the way of Zerizus. It's so simple. It's so simple. I mean, what I'm saying right now, what the Ramchal is saying right now, is one of the most elementary things, one of the most fundamental things that anyone could ever say. We all want to be disciplined. We all want to reach our potential. We all want to work hard and do the very best we can at whatever it is we're doing, whether it's our relationships or it's our professional lives or it's our spiritual lives. We all want to be the very best and put everything we have into those areas of our lives. We all want that. And we all struggle with it because no one likes exertion. I guess you can train yourself, right? I don't know if Les is on anywhere. Oh, there, yeah, Les, you're on. Les, right? Les, I'm just using Les as an example. Michael is also an example, probably others that I don't know. But people, Dr. Glickman, right? Also Michael Glickman, people that have run marathons, right? At a certain point, you have to cross over to a certain point, right? Where you no longer hate exertion. At some point, I imagine you can train yourself to actually enjoy exertion, physical exertion. But I also know, just from knowing myself, that even if you get there, you can lose it just as quickly as you got it, right? So you can work and overcome, and then you can be super disciplined to get up. I'm reading this book called The 5 a.m. Club, The 5 a.m. Club. It's a really fascinating book. I recommend it to anybody. Robin Sharma. It's a really interesting book. And in the 5 a.m. Club, he says that if getting up at 5 a.m. changes your life, right? You're a different person. He said it's incredibly hard. He said for the first, I don't know exactly how he comes up with this number, for the first 66 days, it's torture. Okay. But after 66 days, it becomes routine and it becomes easy and it becomes something that you look forward to and it becomes part of your life and it's not challenging anymore. So I don't know where that number 66 comes from, whatever, but the bottom line is it is possible. It is possible to cross over to the point where you actually do enjoy the physical exertion and you can actually thrive on it, I guess you could say. But there's a baseline hatred of exertion and a love of physical delights to be enjoyed to their fullest degree. And that is a big challenge for us when it comes to maximizing our potential as human beings, as Jews, as spiritual growing people. So open floor for a few minutes. I want to hear people's reaction to that initial, very simple and fundamental and obvious, but incredibly wise and important opening salvo of the Ramchal on chapter 9.
Well, I like my favorite part about running, I always joke, is when it's over. I find, sometimes you do stuff for how it's gonna make you feel, right? Exertion, physical exercise is not something that sometimes it feels good running. A lot of times it's just, that it's going to be good, like other things. Sometimes, doing the right thing. Sometimes it's hard, it's an effort, but it's how it's gonna make you feel. You have to do it to get the feeling. You can't get a feeling and then do it, sort of. The action precedes the feelings.
Mhm.
I have found that when I was running seriously, the first couple of miles were really excruciating, but after that, it got a lot worse.
Spoken like only Les could say it. Yes, I hear that. That makes sense. It's so you're agreeing with Mike in the sense that while you're doing it, it's never fun, physical over exertion on that level. But do you agree that, like what Mike is saying, that it's the feeling afterwards that makes it all worth it? Or
I think the feeling afterwards is probably the most dependable. The feeling while it's happening, on very rare occasions for me, it was really a kind of high for me, but that was a kind of in the minority. The most difficult part of getting up to run is getting up. If you can overcome that, as you call it, that inertia, if you make if you make a date with somebody else and you're going to be embarrassed if you stand them up, that's a great way to kind of break through. And by the way, the 56-day thing, I think that's a number of weeks that somebody has posited that you have to be accustomed into doing a routine before it gets to be kind of automatic, where you go on autopilot and you don't question, you just know that you got to get up.
Yeah. 66 was the number that he had. 66. I don't.
Well, that blows that theory then.
No, I think you're still right. I think it's just I don't know. He had there's a calculation that he makes, and obviously it's going to be different for everybody else. But I think Les, you're making a good point. I think that you gave the example of making a date to run with somebody else or whatever. It's really accountability, and that by the way is a key feature also in this application in spiritual in the spiritual parallel, which is that accountability is always a helpful thing to have in your life to somebody else. So if you're working on something, if there's something that you're trying to grow in a certain area, or you're trying to be committed to doing something on a regular basis, finding somebody to do it with, a running partner is the same concept as a chavrusa, so a learning partner, right? Somebody that you make a commitment that you're going to learn with that person, whatever it is, every day for 15 minutes or something like that, or 3 days a week, or twice a week for a half hour, whatever it is. You show up for that person. You show up because there's another person relying on you. And I think that's really key and critical when it comes to things that you want to add to your spiritual repertoire. Don't just try to do it on your own, because it's very easy to let yourself off the hook. But if there's somebody else involved in the process, then it's you're much more likely to remain committed to it. So it's true in the example of running, but it's also true in the example of learning or davening. Let's say you want to start coming to shul once a week, right? So make up with commitment with somebody, somebody else. Hey, you know what? Tuesdays, let's meet 7:30 at L'chaim Center, and we're going to daven together, or whatever it is, or whatever you want to do. Shabbat, you want to start doing Shabbat once a month. You pick a friend and say, once a month we're going to light Shabbat candles together, and we're gonna get our families together for a Shabbat meal, whatever. Where if you involve somebody else and bring somebody else into the process, then it's you have a much better chance of pulling through. So that's also a very good point. So okay, so let's see. He says one who is focused on such physical comforts cannot attain zrizus, for with regard to such a person, it is certain that the service of his creator will weigh upon him as a great burden. Okay, this is because someone who wishes to eat his meals with absolute peace of mind and relaxation and sleep his slumber undisturbed, and who refuses to move, if not at his own slow pace, and who conducts himself similarly in all other matters like these, it will surely be difficult for him to rise early to go to synagogue for prayer in the morning, or to cut his meal short because it's time for the afternoon mincha prayer, or to leave his house for the purpose of performing a mitzvah if the weather is not perfectly clear. And all the more will such an individual find it difficult to rush himself to perform mitzvahs or to engage in Torah study, which is what Zrizus is. Zrizus is not just doing the mitzvahs, it's doing them with excitement, with passion, with energy and urgency. So it's really tremendous what he's saying. He's just laying it out for us in such a clear way that excellence in performance of our Judaism is hard, like really hard, no less difficult than running a marathon, less.
There's one other thing that I have used through the years, and that is a diary that simply records the workout that I took, because it's so easy to rationalize by saying, well, it's only been a couple of days since I've been out of the routine. But writing it down does two things. First of all, it gives you a sense of accomplishment. You're entering it into a log. And the second thing is it stops you from playing the game of willfully ignoring the distance you've come in kind of giving up territory. The number of days where you've taken the liberty of resting up or doing some other kind of rationalization.
Yeah, I think that's really, really important in the spiritual pursuits as well, because you have to be able. I mean, what you're saying, Les, is really the concept of cheshbon hanefesh, spiritual accounting, right? It's keeping a spiritual accounting diary. I have a goal. Set a goal, whatever your goal is. Make sure it's realistic. Make sure it's not too big. Make sure it's not too small. It should be a SMART goal, meaning it's got to be. What does SMART goal stand for? 1 second. Let me remember. It's a great acronym. A SMART goal is something that is
specific, measurable,
measurable, achievable, realistic, and time bound. So specific. It's not a generalized idea. It's something actual and specific. It's measurable. You can tell if you're doing it or not. It's achievable. It's got to be something that you could do, that is within the realm of your possibility. It's got to be realistic. It can't be, I'm, one day you wake up, I'm going to go to shul every single day at 7:30 a.m. If, all of a sudden out of nowhere. And it's got to be time bound. It has to be, by this time, or by this, at this, in this window. Hi, yo. Okay, I'm teaching. So SMART goals, right? So you set a goal for yourself. You set a SMART goal for yourself. But right, Les's point. But then it's a very good idea to track that goal. So let's say my goal is to, I just keep coming back to the shul idea just because it's an easy idea, but it could be anything, whatever you want to do. Let's pick a different thing. Let's say it's keeping I want to keep kosher 3 days a week. It's just a random thought. Okay, I want to eat only kosher 3 days a week. So you have to have your little booklet and mark it down. Did I do it 3 days this week? I ate only kosher. Yes. One Sunday, yes. Wednesday, yes. Shabbos, yes. Okay, I did it. Move on next week, right? I have to be able to, Les?
There's one other thing that I'm thinking of too. It is very important that you not make it a binary choice. In other words, you said this many times about observance, David. It's never all or nothing. And for physical exercise, you can start with a tremendous amount of enthusiasm, and it can be so demoralizing when you deviate from your original goal that sometimes that destroys the whole effort to begin with. So there has to be an expectation of reasonableness that you will fail from time to time. That's all a part of the process.
Yep, that's definitely part of it. That's part of realistic, and that's why it has to be really well thought out. And it's always a good idea to talk to somebody else about it, who's objective. I remember I may have told you this story once on one of our momentum trips, not the last trip, not the trip before that, but the trip before that, 3 trips ago, there was a guy on the trip who was very inspired. And after the trip was over, he's like, I really thought about this a lot, and I really took this to heart, and I decided that I'm going to commit to, like, I want to learn Torah. I really want to learn Torah. I'm like, amazing. That's great. What's like, what do you want to do? Let's flesh it out a little bit. He says, I want to learn 2 hours a day, every day, 2 hours. I'm like, 2 hours a day. You know, most rabbis I know don't get to learn 2 hours a day. You know, 2 hours of Torah learning a day is a tremendous, tremendous goal. How about like starting off with like 15 minutes a day or something like that? No, that's ridiculous. That's not enough. I'm doing 2 hours a day. So I like, okay, you can do it. You know, I checked in with him like a week later. How's it going? I did it the first day and I didn't do it the second day. And then I checked with him a week later. He's probably learned 2 hours since the trip. Okay. It was 3 years ago. So it's got to be within the realm of realistic, and you got to talk to people about it. You can talk to me about it. You can talk to a friend about it. But got to make sure it's a realistic goal and it's a measurable goal. And but then to Les's point, charting it and keeping track of it is critical also. Okay, so yeah, so that's what he's saying over here. He's saying really that like excellence in Yiddishkeit, excellence in Jewish life is hard. It's really hard, no matter what area you want to work on, whether it's giving more tzedakah. That's not easy, because that means parting with my hard-earned money, or whether it's keeping Shabbat. That's not easy, because it means limiting my travel or my access to to the world for a certain amount of time. Kosher, that's not easy, because that's limiting my social life and where I can eat. Or davening, that's not easy, because I have to get up early. None of it is easy. None of it is easy. It's yeah. 1 second, Scott. It's worth it if it's something that you truly value, but it's not easy. So you have to know that, and knowing that it's not easy, you got to be super smart about it, because otherwise the Yetzer Hara, that negative inclination inside of you, is just going to undermine it and derail it as quickly as he can. Yeah, Scott.
Yeah, I think one thing, and it could be working out, it could be religion, it could be anything. I think something that gets in the way is pride. And sometimes you have to put your pride aside and say, you reach out to others for help. Like, you can't just think you're going to do it on your own and accomplish it. But like you were talking about before, if you can reach out to someone else, if it's a trainer, if it's a rabbi, if it's whatever for working out religion, and then all of a sudden you're held accountable to someone else's schedule, then you're giving yourself some self-discipline.
Right.
Because, and sometimes you do have to suck it up and say, okay, yeah, you know what? I want to get involved, but I need help getting involved.
Absolutely. And it's like, it really works, and it's a great tool in any area where you're trying to do something hard and push yourself beyond what's simple and easy, because it's a lot easier just to sit and watch Netflix all night, or to do whatever, or even to do meaningful things, but meaningful, easy things. Spend time with the children or the grandchildren. Those are all wonderful and meaningful, important things, but you don't want to spend all your time doing that, because there's other things that you need to accomplish as well. Okay, let's take it a drop further. Furthermore, one who accustoms himself to such practices is not his own master to act differently when he wants to, for his will has already become bound by the shackles of habit, which becomes second nature. This is exactly what we were talking about before, but from the other perspective. We were talking about creating good habits. We were talking about 66 days to form a new habit and to make something automatic and to create that muscle memory in that area that you're trying to grow in. But the default, right? The challenge, the reason why it's so hard is because it doesn't take 66 days to form a bad habit. It takes 66 seconds to form a bad habit, right? Our default, the way we're built, and this is sort of unfair, and if you can You know, if you want to complain to the boss about this one, I think it's a pretty legitimate complaint. Like, why did he make us? He set the bar so high for us. There's so much that we're meant to achieve as human beings in interpersonal relationships, and in excellence in all the areas of our lives, in spiritual and religious and professional and all the areas. There's such the bar is set so high, and then he stacked the cards against us by giving us these default settings that will always take us to the place of inertia and laziness, right? So it doesn't take 66 days to form a bad habit. The bad habit is almost automatic, right? Sitting on the couch is so much easier than getting up and going and riding on the Peloton, okay, or whatever it is that you're trying to do. So so it's important to remember that like we have to take control. It's never too late, right? And we have to take active control over the areas that we have prioritized. Julian, I see your hand up. I'm going to come to you in a second, but it starts with prioritizing. You know, what is the one area that I really want to work on this year? Or what is the one thing that I really feel that I could really push myself in one area, one little area that I can work hard on? Prioritize it, make sure it really, really, really matters to you, and then push yourself and work hard in that one area. And slowly over time, we begin to develop the positive spiritual habits that we're looking for. Julian, you had a question.
Sorry, David, what page are you on now?
147.
147.
Chapter 9.
Thank you.
Yeah, towards the beginning of chapter 9. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Okay, excellent. Let's keep going over here. Ramchal describes the proper attitude that counters the obstacle to Zerizus. This obstacle to Zerizus, again, is the love of physical relaxation and comfort, the hatred of exertion, the love of physical delights enjoyed to their fullest. This is obstacle number one to the acquisition of the trait, the quality, the midah of Zerizus, passionate excitement in alacrity and eagerness in our performance of our mitzvahs. So what is the proper attitude that one can have that can help us put this into perspective? So in truth, a person must know that he is not in this world for physical relaxation, but rather for toil and effort. Okay, that you're going to have a hard time convincing some people of that. Okay, I'm thinking of a particular person. I won't even allude to who this person is, but this person really loves physical pleasure. You know, this person has a masseuse that comes to his house 2 or 3 times a week, you know, for his own personal 1.5 to 2-hour massage, after which that person, you know, sits down to enjoy a couple hours of watching a movie every day or whatever it is, really fully engaged in the physical pleasures and the comforts of the good life, you know, and try convincing someone like that you're put on this earth to toil, you're put on this earth to work hard. And someone might say, look, I'm 70 years old, I worked hard, I put in my years, I'm retired, I'm 80 years old, I've done I did my year, I worked for half a century, I worked like, you know, endless hours, and I pushed myself, and now it's time for me to take it easy and to relax a little bit. There might be some truth to that, by the way, but that doesn't mean you stop pushing yourself intellectually. That doesn't mean that you stop pushing yourself spiritually. It might mean that you can push yourself physically a little bit less. You may need to, right? Health limitations might require that you don't push yourself physically as much as you did at one point. That's okay. But we're here to toil and to exert effort until our last breathing moment. We're not here. The purpose of our lives is not physical relaxation. Physical relaxation does play a purpose. There is it does serve a purpose. There is something about physical relaxation which is positive. It regenerates my body. It recharges me. It gives me something to look forward to, a break, something to keep me going, something to to clear my mind so that I can come back to my purpose in life with more energy and focus and concentration. But it can never become the purpose of my life. Once it becomes the purpose of my life, the comfort and all the comforts that we have in this crazy time that we live in, that our parents and grandparents and great-grandparents could have never even dreamed of a fraction of the physical comforts that we have in our lives. Think about our bubbies, washing clothes with, a washboard, and who knows what physical exertion that they had just for daily survival. And all the technology and everything that we have in our lives that make our lives so physically comfortable and easy. On one hand, it's wonderful. On the other hand, it's like, oh my gosh, like, have we forgotten as a species, have we forgotten what it means to work hard and to exert ourselves for greatness? Sometimes I wonder about that. I look at the younger generation, and I really wonder if they even have that ability, if they even have that in them anymore. The ability to even know what it means to push yourself physically hard to accomplish the goals, the higher meaningful goals in your life. Okay. Let's keep going. Turn the page. And therefore, one should not conduct himself in his service of Hashem in any other way than the manner of workers working for their employers, in accordance with what Rabbi Yochanan would say. Rabbi Yochanan in Pirkei Avos, he says this, and it's also in the Talmud Yerushalmi. He say, we are hired day laborers, meaning the way we should relate to ourselves. There are in the Talmud, there are two types of employee situations, two types of employment that are described. Well, there's multiple types, but one is like an independent person. Let's say someone who has his own business, or somebody who's hired to do a particular job. Okay, so that person, there's an expectation that they do this particular job and they get the job done. And that's great. And there are people like that today whose jobs are not, necessarily hourly, or they're not wage related. They're hired to do a certain job. If you do the job, great. Then there's day laborers. A day laborer means you're getting paid by the hour for what you're doing. And there are halachas, there are Jewish laws that apply to day laborers, right? For example, are you allowed to take a break during the day to eat lunch? And the answer to that is, of course you are, because if you don't take a break to eat lunch, you're not going to be able to carry out your activities through the day. Well, after you eat lunch, are you allowed to take a few minutes afterwards to bench, to say the Birkat Hamazon, to say the blessings after the meal? And the answer to that is yes, of course you are, because that's a Torah obligation. But interestingly enough, you're supposed to stop after halfway through the benching part, with the Birkat Hamazon that we say, half of it is ordained by the Torah and half of it is commanded rabbinically. So you got to know where that point is. And then at that point, after you've fulfilled your Torah obligation of saying the blessings after the meal, if you're a day laborer, you've got to stop at that point and go back to work. You're not even allowed to continue the second half of the Birkat Hamazon, which is only rabbinically mandated. Because why? Because you're being paid hourly. You're on the clock. So when you're on the clock, you can't, if you're getting paid hourly and you're sitting at a desk and you're getting paid hourly and you're spending half of the time that you're at your desk checking, your email or watching videos on TikTok or whatever, you're stealing. You're stealing from your employer because he's paying you an hourly wage and you're not working during that time. That's called stealing. That's called a day laborer. So Rabbi Yochanan used to say, we should relate to ourselves in vis-a-vis Hashem and our serving Hashem as day laborers, right? We're on the clock. We're on the clock. We have, we have obligations. It's not okay for me to sit and squander hours and hours of a day. That's not okay. I'm a day laborer. I've got obligations towards Hashem. I've got to fulfill those obligations, and I've got to work hard to do them. It's not okay for me to, shirk those responsibilities. So that's what Rabbi Yochanan would say. Furthermore, one should conduct himself in the manner of soldiers at their battle stations, whose meals are eaten in haste, whose sleep is transient, and who always stands ready for the moment of battle. Okay, I think about my son who was in the army. There was 6 weeks where he didn't sleep in a bed, where they were sleeping outside in fields because they were protecting the border of Gaza, and they ate their meals as quickly as they could, because there were times when they were understaffed and there was COVID and they were short-manned, understaffed a lot of the time, so they didn't have enough people, so they had to do extra shifts. And you can't sit there and sleep and say, oh, I'm tired, I need some extra sleep tonight. Sorry, that's not an option. You're protecting the southern border of Israel. You got to eat quickly, you got to sleep. You're not going to get a lot of sleep, and you got to be ready for that moment when that terrorist might come up to the fence, or there might be a breach of the security wall. So that's how we are supposed to view ourselves in our avodas Hashem, in our service of Hashem, like soldiers who are fully committed and who understand that we have obligations to fulfill towards Hashem in this world. And that's what Job is, a very, very famous line from the book of Eov, from the book of Job. He says, Ki Adam la'amal yulad, man was born for toil. Okay, let's look at the note, the asterisk down below. Actually, let's look at note number 5, and then we'll look at the asterisk down below. Note number 5, talking about the day laborer. Somebody who is hired for the day must work every moment of the day. If he spends any part of it on something other than his job, this is a misappropriation of his employer's time, and it must be made up on his own time. Such a person is unlike a contractor who's hired to complete a specific task, regardless of how long it takes, and who is thus not cheating if he dawdles. Service of Hashem is our life's mission. Service of Hashem is our life's mission. We are considered day workers and not contractors. Our time is not our own, but His, and may not be squandered at all. Okay, ultimately, we're going to be held accountable for our time and how we spent it. Okay, now looking down below on this verse in Job, while the verse indeed teaches that man's mission is to toil, one could theoretically argue that this refers to toiling for a livelihood or for other pursuits, right? Maybe what Job is talking about over there when he says man is born for toil is that we got to go to work every day, and we got to, get up and go to work and work an 8-hour day and push ourselves in our physical pursuits for a livelihood. How do we know that one is born to toil specifically in his service of Hashem? Maybe Job just means toil in our physical work. So the Gemara, that's the Talmud, explains that this is clarified by another verse. It says in the book of Joshua, this book of the Torah shall not depart from your mouth. This is God speaking to Joshua. Rather, you should contemplate it day and night in order that you observe to do according to all that is written in it. From this verse, we learn that the verse in Eov and Job refers to toiling in the study of Torah and its precepts. This includes also applying those precepts in practice. Okay, the Ramchal explains being born to toil has 2 ramifications. The first is that one's time is not his own, so he does not have the luxury of wasting it on idle pursuits. The second is that one is obligated and expected to spring into action at any opportunity to perform a mitzvah or study Torah. Consequently, he must avoid becoming dependent on material comforts in any way that could hinder his preparedness. Okay, so this is a tall order, obviously. This is serious stuff that we're talking about over here. But the message, I think, applies to all of us on whatever level we're ready to accept the message at. And that is that spiritual greatness, right? That's the topic of this session, of this class. Spiritual greatness is not a possibility unless we are prepared to exert ourselves and to push ourselves in areas that are difficult, that are not easy, in all kinds of areas. And that's really, really important. That's a really important message. I'm going to stop here. I have a couple minutes before I have to go. If anyone wants to ask a question or make a comment. Les.
One thing that I've learned from multiple sources, probably from you, David, is this beautiful balance between when you are confronted with an assignment, a task, a responsibility, an obligation that is very, very difficult, very challenging. One of the ways we get through that is by visualizing what it's going to feel like when we accomplish that goal. And if we do accomplish the goal, a primary part of the joy and satisfaction we feel comes from our understanding of the challenges, of the difficulty of how we were pushed, how much it took for us to actually accomplish that goal. And this kind of ties into the concept of God as the infinite giver, the purpose of life to follow those strictures, because that's the path for the greatest fulfillment, the greatest satisfaction we can gain. That without that challenge, you remove the dimension that incorporates the sense of joy that accomplishment is there to provide.
Wow, beautiful, Les. So that's a wonderful point and well said. And yeah, I mean it's such a great way of saying it. Thank you.
So the point about being born to toil, isn't it more that the work is actually a way to strengthen our relationship with Hashem, and that's really, we're born really to try to get back the relationship to Hashem that Adam and Eve sort of altered, because they weren't necessarily, Adam wasn't created to toil necessarily. That was done after they broke their the rules and were kicked out of the Garden of Eden. And so I see that we're really trying to get back to that relationship to Hashem, and work's just a means of that necessarily. So we have to work hard to do that.
Well, yeah, and the Ramchal explains actually in not in this book, but in a different book, Derech Hashem, that that the work is doubly hard now. Because now we have to get back to where Adam and Eve were, so to speak, and then we have to start over and start doing the work that they didn't do and move forward from there. But yeah, that's a very good point. It's a very good point. Okay, guys, I'm sorry, I have to run. I got it. Yosef's gonna be late for his practice. I'm being Abba. Right.
Mazel tov again, David.
Hi,
Thank you.
Carly.
Mazel tov.
Mazel tov, David. She's
Thank you,
beautiful.
Rabbi. Mazel
Right.
tov.
Hi, so cute. Thanks, guys. Hello. All right, have a great week, everyone. Shavua Tov.
Shavua tov.
Shavua tov.
Mazel tov, Ellen.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Great grandfather. Crazy. That's something impressive.
By the way, David, thank
Yeah.
you for not comparing me to Elliot, because I would have been.
I thought about it. But
I
decided-
figured you did.
Yeah.
I think you're teaching this because of me, so I kind of resent it a little bit, but
And
I
me.
also relate to it.
And me.
Peace.
Okay. Thank you. Hi, Shayna. Hi, Carly. We'll take good care of your mom. Don't worry. We'll take good care of your mom when she's here. I know Allie and
Wait, hold on. I have
going up partying tonight. All right. Bye, everybody.
exam.